You have a son. The words freeze the Mafia boss mid-breath. Through the hospital room door stands a black-haired child with his eyes, beside the Omega he abandoned 5 years ago. Damien Frost lost his memories. Sterling Hayes kept their secret, until now. Before we dive in, comment where in the world you're watching from, and don't forget to click subscribe. The doctor's voice cut through the sterile silence like a blade. Your husband is awake, but he doesn't remember you, doesn't remember your marriage, doesn't remember the night he threw you out while you were carrying his child. I stood frozen outside the hospital room, my nurse's uniform suddenly feeling too tight, too heavy. Through the window, I could see him. Damien Frost, black hair falling across his forehead. Those ice-blue eyes that once looked at me like I hung the stars, now staring blankly at nothing. The most feared Mafia boss in the city had lost 5 years of memory. 5 years that included me, our marriage, our son, and the night he chose his empire over us. The manila folder trembled in my hands as I read the medical chart one more time, even though I had already memorized every word. Patient Damien Frost, 32 years old. Gunshot wound to the head. Retrograde amnesia affecting approximately 5 years of memory. The words blurred as tears threatened to spill. I blinked them back with practiced ease. Nurses don't cry, especially not nurses who once loved and lost the man lying unconscious 3 doors down. My supervisor's voice echoed down the corridor. Sterling, room 307 needs vitals check. I nodded without turning around. My blonde hair still pinned in the tight bun I wore every shift. The same bun I used to wear when Damien would come home late, smelling of gunpowder and expensive whiskey, and slowly pull each pin free while his lips traced the curve of my neck. I pushed the memory away violently. That version of Damien was gone, had been gone for 5 years, ever since the night he looked at me with those cold eyes and said the words that shattered my world. You were a mistake, Sterling. A weakness I can't afford. Take your bastard child and leave before I make you disappear permanently. I had been 4 months pregnant. 4 months of secretly hoping he would be different, that love could somehow soften the brutal edges of a man who ruled the underworld with an iron fist and ice in his veins. I was wrong. Now, 5 years later, I worked the night shift at Mercy General Hospital under my maiden name, Sterling Hayes instead of Sterling Frost. My son, River, was safely asleep 3 floors above in the hospital's child care center, where staff could leave their children during overnight shifts. He had his father's black hair and my gray eyes. He had never met the man who rejected him before he was even born, and now that man didn't even remember I existed. The head nurse, Margaret, appeared at my elbow. Sterling, I know this is difficult, but you're the best trauma nurse we have. Mr. Frost's family specifically requested private care, and you're assigned to his case. She paused, her weathered face softening slightly. If you can't do it, I'll understand. I can reassign. I could feel her watching me, waiting. The old Sterling would have run, would have hidden. But I wasn't that frightened Omega anymore. I had survived worse than Damien Frost's coldness. I had survived his absence, his rejection. I had built a life from the ashes he left behind. I'll do it, I said quietly. My voice didn't shake. Margaret squeezed my shoulder once before walking away, leaving me alone with the weight of what I had just agreed to. The first time I entered room 307, Damien was asleep. The monitors beeped steadily, tracking the heartbeat that once raced when he touched me. His face looked different somehow. The sharp edges had softened slightly, and there were new scars I didn't recognize. A thin line along his jaw, another disappearing into his hairline. 5 years had changed him in ways I couldn't see in the society pages or the occasional news report about the Frost family's legitimate business dealings. I checked his vitals with steady hands, noting everything on the chart. His temperature was slightly elevated, his pulse strong and steady. When my fingers brushed his wrist to check his pulse manually, his hand moved, fast, instinctive. He grabbed my wrist before I could pull away, his eyes snapping open. Those ice-blue eyes locked onto mine with an intensity that made my breath catch. Who are you? His voice was rough from disuse, but still carried that commanding edge that made people obey without question. "I'm Sterling, your nurse." I kept my voice professional, neutral. "You're in Mercy General Hospital. You were injured." His grip loosened but didn't release completely. His thumb traced the inside of my wrist, probably feeling my racing pulse. "Sterling," he repeated slowly, as if testing the name. "Why does your scent feel familiar?" Omegas and alphas could recognize each other through scent, through the pheromones that marked them as compatible or incompatible. Even through the suppressants I took religiously, even through the 5 years of distance, some part of him recognized me on an instinctual level. I pulled my hand free gently. "Many people come through this hospital, Mr. Frost. Perhaps you're simply disoriented from the head injury." He studied me for a long moment, his gaze moving from my face down to my uniform and back up again. Something flickered in his eyes, confusion mixed with something else I couldn't identify. The door opened and a man in an expensive suit entered without knocking. Damien's second-in-command, Vincent Crane. I recognized him immediately, though he didn't seem to recognize me. "Boss," Vincent said, relief flooding his scarred face. "You're awake. The doctor said you might not remember the last few years." Damien's attention shifted from me to Vincent, and I used the opportunity to step back toward the door. "I'll give you privacy," I said quietly. "Wait," Damien commanded, his voice sharp. His eyes found mine again. "When will you be back?" "I check on you every 2 hours," I replied. "I'll return at midnight." I left before he could ask anything else, my heart hammering against my ribs. In the hallway, I pressed my back against the cool wall and tried to steady my breathing. This was going to be harder than I thought. The next few days fell into a routine. I would check Damien's vitals, adjust his medications, help him with the physical therapy exercises the doctors recommended. He watched me constantly, his gaze heavy and searching. Sometimes I would catch him staring at my hands, my hair, my face, as if trying to solve a puzzle he didn't know existed. Vincent and other members of the Frost organization came and went, updating Damien on business matters he couldn't remember. They spoke carefully around me, as if I were just another hospital employee who might overhear sensitive information. They had no idea I once sat in on those meetings, back when Damien thought he could keep both his empire and his Omega. On the 4th night, River's child care worker called in sick. I had no choice but to bring my son to work with me, settling him in the break room with his coloring books and strict instructions to stay quiet. He was good at being invisible, at staying silent. He had learned early that being seen meant danger in a world where his father's enemies would use any weakness against the Frost family. I was checking medication dosages when River appeared in the doorway of the supply room, his small face worried. "Daddy, I need the bathroom," he whispered. He called me Daddy because he had no other parent, because I was both mother and father to him. I glanced at my watch. I had 15 minutes before I needed to check on Damien again. "Okay, baby. Let's be quick." I took his hand and led him down the corridor toward the staff bathroom. We were almost there when Vincent rounded the corner, his phone pressed to his ear. He barely glanced at us, his attention focused on his conversation. I pulled River closer, shielding him with my body as we passed. But River, curious and fearless in the way of children who don't understand danger, looked up at Vincent with wide gray eyes, the same gray eyes I saw in the mirror every morning. We made it to the bathroom without incident. I waited outside while River used the facilities, my mind racing. It was only a matter of time before someone from Damien's world recognized River, recognized the resemblance. I needed to be more careful, needed to keep them separate. When we emerged, the hallway was empty. I exhaled in relief and took River back to the break room, settling him with a juice box and a promise to return soon. Then I steeled myself and headed to room 307. Damien was awake, sitting up in bed with his laptop open. He had refused to stay idle, despite the doctor's orders to rest. The head wound was healing well, but his memories remained stubbornly absent. 5 years gone, as if they had never existed. "Time for your vitals," I announced softly, not wanting to startle him. He looked up and something in his expression made me pause. There was a softness there I didn't remember, an openness that the old Damien had never shown. The head injury hadn't just stolen his memories, it had stripped away some of the ice that had built up around his heart. "Sterling," he said, closing the laptop, "I've been thinking about something." I busied myself with the blood pressure cuff, wrapping it around his arm with practiced efficiency. "Oh, you smell like vanilla and rain." He said it matter-of-factly, as if commenting on the weather. I've been trying to figure out why that scent makes me feel calm. Every other Omega who's come near me makes my alpha instincts aggressive, territorial. But you, he paused, his eyes searching my face, you make me feel safe. My hands stilled on the cuff. That's probably just because I'm your nurse. You've built trust over the past few days. No, he said firmly. It's more than that. Vincent told me I've never had a bonded mate. Never even considered it because it would be a weakness in my position. But something about you feels like home. I couldn't breathe. Couldn't think. The blood pressure cuff beeped, breaking the spell. I noted the reading on the chart with shaking hands. Your blood pressure is slightly elevated, I said, my voice carefully neutral. Try to avoid stressful topics. Is talking about you stressful? He asked, a hint of amusement in his voice. I'm your nurse, Mr. Frost. Nothing more. I moved to check his temperature, but he caught my wrist gently. Damien, he corrected. Call me Damien. And I think we both know there's something more here. I can't remember you, but my body does. My alpha recognizes you. I pulled my hand free, stepped back. You're confused. The head injury has affected your perception. Then explain why I dream about blonde hair and gray eyes every night since I woke up. Explain why the sound of your voice settles something restless in my chest. He leaned forward, his intensity pinning me in place. Explain why I feel like I've lost something precious, and you're the only thing that makes that feeling ease. Because you did lose something, I wanted to scream. You lost me. You lost our son. You threw us away like we were nothing. But I didn't say any of that. Instead, I finished checking his vitals in silence and left the room without another word. In the hallway, I leaned against the wall and pressed my hands to my face, trying to hold back the tears that threatened to spill. This was torture. Having him look at me with curiosity instead of coldness. Having him seek my presence instead of ordering me gone. This version of Damien was the one I had dreamed of 5 years ago, the one I had hoped existed beneath the ice. But it was all a lie, a trick of an injured brain. When his memories returned, he would remember why he hated me, remember why he threw me away. I couldn't let myself hope, couldn't let myself fall again. The next week passed in a blur of careful distance and Damien's increasing frustration. He asked questions I couldn't answer, sought my presence in ways that made my heart ache. His physical recovery progressed quickly, but his memories remained locked away. And then one night, everything changed. I was doing rounds at 2 a.m. when I heard shouting from room 3. 07. I ran, my heart in my throat, and burst through the door to find Damien thrashing in bed, tangled in sheets, clearly caught in a nightmare. His pheromones flooded the room, thick with distress and rage. No, he was shouting. Don't leave. Please don't leave. I should have called for help. Should have gotten a doctor. But instinct took over. I moved to his bedside and placed my hand on his chest, releasing calming pheromones the way I used to when he came home wound too tight from whatever violence his day had required. Damien, I said firmly, wake up. You're safe. His eyes snapped open, wild and unfocused. Then they locked onto mine, and some of the panic receded. His hand came up to cover mine on his chest, pressing it flat against his racing heartbeat. You're here, he breathed. You didn't leave. I'm here, I confirmed softly. It was just a nightmare. He pulled me down before I could react, his arms wrapping around me with desperate strength. I should have pulled away, should have maintained professional distance, but he was shaking, and some part of me that had never stopped loving him couldn't bear to see him in pain. I could feel his heartbeat gradually slowing, his breathing evening out. His face was buried in my hair, and I heard him inhale deeply. "Vanilla and rain," he murmured against my temple. "I was dreaming about you, about losing you." "I'm right here," I whispered, even though I knew I shouldn't. We stayed like that for several minutes, tangled together in the hospital bed, his arms around me like I was something precious he was afraid to release. Eventually, he loosened his grip enough that I could pull back and look at him. His eyes were clearer now, the nightmare fading. "Tell me the truth, Sterling," he said quietly. "Do we know each other? Not as nurse and patient. Before. I could have lied, should have lied, but I was so tired of carrying the weight alone." "Yes," I whispered. "We knew each other before." Something fierce and triumphant lit his eyes. "I knew it. I knew my Alpha recognized you for a reason." He cupped my face with both hands, his thumbs brushing my cheekbones. "Tell me everything. Tell me who you are to me." But before I could answer, before I could decide whether to open the door to the past, River's voice called from the hallway. "Daddy, I had a bad dream." I froze. Damien's hands stilled on my face, his eyes widening. The door was partially open, and through it walked my son, rubbing his eyes sleepily. He must have woken up in the break room and come looking for me. River stopped when he saw us, his gray eyes going wide. "Daddy, who is that?" Damien looked from River to me, and I watched the pieces click together in his mind. The black hair that matched his own. The age that would put his birth right around the time of Damien's missing memories. The way River called me Daddy. The way I had reacted every time Damien pushed for information about my past. "Is that," Damien's voice was barely a whisper, "is that my son?" I stood up quickly, moving to River and scooping him into my arms. "I need to take him back to the childcare room," I said, avoiding the question. "Sterling," Damien's voice cracked. "Please! Is that my son?" I looked at him, this man who had thrown me away, who had called our child a bastard, who had chosen his empire over us. And I saw genuine devastation in his eyes, real pain. But I couldn't let myself care about his pain, not when I had spent 5 years picking up the pieces of my own. "You don't get to know that," I said coldly. "You gave up that right 5 years ago." I walked out with River in my arms, leaving Damien sitting alone in that hospital bed, finally understanding that he hadn't just lost 5 years of memories. He had lost everything that mattered. The next morning, I requested a transfer to a different floor. My supervisor tried to talk me out of it, but I was firm. I couldn't be Damien's nurse anymore. Not now that he knew about River, not now that the past had crashed into the present. But Damien Frost didn't become the most powerful alpha in the city by accepting defeat easily. 2 days after I transferred, he checked himself out of the hospital against medical advice. And 3 days after that, he appeared at my apartment. I don't know how he found me. Probably the same way he found everything he wanted to find, through money and power and connections that ran through every level of the city. I opened the door to find him standing in the hallway, looking thinner than he should, but standing strong, his ice-blue eyes fixed on me, with an intensity that made my knees weak. "We need to talk," he said simply. I stepped out into the hallway and closed the door behind me, not wanting River to overhear. "There's nothing to talk about. I have a son I don't remember, a son I apparently abandoned." His jaw clenched. "Don't I deserve to know why? Don't I deserve to understand what kind of man I was?" "You were the kind of man who valued power over people," I said flatly. "The kind who saw love as weakness and family as liability. You told me I was a mistake. You called our unborn child a bastard and threw us out." He flinched as if I had struck him. "Why? Why would I do that?" I laughed, but it was a hollow sound. "Because you're Damien Frost. Because the Mafia boss can't afford to have a weakness. Because an Omega husband and a child could be used against you by your enemies. You made a choice, Damien. You chose your empire." "But I don't feel that way now," he said, stepping closer. "Every instinct I have is screaming at me to protect you both. To claim you, to keep you safe." I pushed him back firmly. "That's just your alpha instincts reacting to the knowledge that you have a child. It's not real. You don't know us." "Then let me," he pleaded. "Let me get to know River. Let me get to know you again. I can't change what I did. but I can be different now. I shook my head, wrapping my arms around myself. You think it's that simple? You think you can just decide to be different and everything will be fine? You destroyed me, Damien. You shattered me into so many pieces it took years to put myself back together. And the moment your memories return, you'll remember why you pushed us away, and you'll do it again. What if my memories don't return? He asked quietly. The doctor said it's possible they never will. What if this is who I am now? An alpha who wants his omega and his son. And what about your empire? I challenged. What about all the enemies who would see River as a target? What about the danger that comes with being connected to you? Then I'll protect you, he said fiercely. Both of you. I'll burn down anyone who tries to hurt what's mine. We're not yours, I whispered. Not anymore. But we both knew I was lying, because bond or no bond, memories or no memories, some part of me had never stopped being his. River's voice called from inside the apartment. Daddy, I'm hungry. Damien's eyes flickered to the door, longing written across his face. Please, he said softly, just let me meet him. Let me try. I looked at this man, this alpha who didn't remember betraying me but who my body still recognized as home, and I made a decision I knew I might regret. One dinner, I said finally. That's all I'm promising. One dinner so River can meet his father. But after that, we'll see. The hope that lit Damien's eyes was almost painful to witness. Thank you, he breathed. I opened the door, letting him follow me inside. River looked up from his coloring book, his gray eyes widening as he took in the tall alpha standing in our small living room. River, I said gently, kneeling beside my son, remember how I told you that your father couldn't be with us, that he had to be somewhere else? River nodded solemnly. Well, I continued, your father had an accident, and he's been in the hospital, but he's better now, and he wanted to meet you. Damien moved slowly, carefully, as if approaching something fragile and precious. He knelt down to River's level, his eyes drinking in every detail of his son's face. Hello, River, he said, his voice rough with emotion. I'm Damien, your father. River studied him with a child's direct honesty. You have the same hair as me, he observed. We do, Damien agreed, a small smile tugging at his lips. We match. Daddy says you're important, River continued, that you have to keep lots of people safe. Is that why you couldn't live with us? I closed my eyes, fighting back tears. Leave it to a child to cut right to the heart of the matter. Damien looked at me, something raw and broken in his expression. I made a mistake, he told River seriously. I wasn't there when I should have been. But if you'll let me, I'd like to try to be here now. River considered this for a long moment. Okay, he said finally. Do you like dinosaurs? Because I really like dinosaurs. And just like that, the ice broke. Damien spent the next hour on the floor with River, listening with complete attention as my son explained the difference between a Tyrannosaurus Rex and a Velociraptor. He asked questions. He laughed at River's jokes. He was patient and gentle and everything I had once dreamed he could be. Watching them together hurt in a way I hadn't anticipated. This was what I had wanted 5 years ago. This was the family I had imagined we could be. But I had to remember that this version of Damien was temporary, that the real Damien, the one who had chosen power over love, was still locked somewhere in his mind. After dinner, after River had fallen asleep with his head pillowed on Damien's lap while Damien read him a story, I carried my son to bed. When I returned to the living room, Damien was still sitting on the couch, looking lost. Thank you, he said quietly, for letting me meet him. He's amazing. He is, I agreed, sitting in the chair across from him, maintaining distance. Sterling, Damien leaned forward, his elbows on his knees. I know I can't remember what happened between us, but I want you to know something. The man I am now, the man sitting here wants to be part of this, part of River's life, part of your life. Until your memories return, I said bitterly. until you remember why you thought we were a liability." "Then help me understand," he urged. "Tell me what happened. Tell me everything, even the parts that hurt. Maybe if I understand who I was, I can make sure I never become that person again." I studied him for a long moment, weighing the risks. Finally, I began to speak. "We met at a charity gala," I said softly. "I was there as a volunteer, serving drinks. You were there representing your family's legitimate businesses." Our eyes met across the room, and something just clicked. "Go on," he encouraged gently. "You pursued me relentlessly," I continued, the memories washing over me. "Flowers every day, private dinners. You made me feel like I was the only person in the world who mattered. When you asked me to marry you after 3 months, I said yes without hesitation." "We got married?" His voice held wonder. "Quietly," I confirmed. "Just a judge and 2 witnesses. You said it was better to keep it private, safer." I understood. I knew who you were, what you did. I thought I could handle it. "What changed?" he asked. "I got pregnant," I said simply. And suddenly, everything I had believed about us, about you, started to crack. You became distant, cold. You stopped coming home. When you did, you smelled like gunpowder and other people's fear. "I was trying to protect you," he said, but it sounded like he was trying to convince himself. "That's what you said," I replied, but protection felt a lot like abandonment. And then one night, Vincent came to tell me you were in the hospital. You'd been shot. I raced there, terrified, only to find you already awake and furious that I had been contacted. Why was I angry?" He looked genuinely confused. "Because your enemies had started asking questions about me, about why the great Damien Frost had suddenly acquired a mysterious Omega who lived in a guarded apartment. You said I had made you weak, that caring about me had made you vulnerable." My eyes burned with unshed tears. "You gave me 2 choices that night. Get rid of the baby and continue as your secret, or leave and never contact you again. When I refused to terminate the pregnancy, you called our child a bastard. You said if I didn't leave willingly, you would make sure I disappeared permanently." Damien had gone pale, his hands clenched into fists. "I said that? I threatened you while you were pregnant with my child?" "You did," I confirmed, my voice breaking. "So I left. I changed my name back. I made sure no one could connect me to you. I had River alone in a clinic 3 states away, and I've spent the last 5 years making sure he never had to know that his father threw him away before he was even born." Silence filled the apartment, heavy and suffocating. Damien stood abruptly, pacing to the window. When he turned back, there were tears tracking down his face. "I'm sorry," he said, his voice raw. "I know that doesn't fix anything. I know sorry means nothing when I can't even remember the pain I caused. But I'm sorry. I'm so fucking sorry, Sterling." I wiped at my own tears. "Your memories could come back any day, Damien. The doctor said it's possible. And when they do, you'll remember why you made those choices. You'll remember that you chose your empire over us." "What if I don't want the empire?" he asked desperately. "What if I choose you instead?" I laughed bitterly. "You say that now, but you don't understand the weight of what you built. The people who depend on you, the enemies who would kill to see you fall. You can't just walk away from that world." "Then I'll find a way to keep you both safe while staying in it," he insisted. "I'll hire more guards. I'll move you somewhere secure." I stood up, wrapping my arms around myself. "I can't do this again, Damien. I can't let myself hope that you'll be different, only to have you break me when your memories return." He crossed the room in 3 long strides, stopping just short of touching me. "What if they don't return? What if this is permanent?" "Then you'll still be Damien Frost," I said quietly. "You'll still have enemies. You'll still have an empire that demands everything from you. And eventually, you'll realize that a nurse and a 5-year-old child don't fit into that world." He reached out slowly, giving me time to pull away. When I didn't, he cupped my face gently. I'm falling in love with you, he whispered. This version of me, the one without memories, is falling in love with the way you look at River. The way you're strong enough to hate me and soft enough to let me try anyway. The way your scent makes my alpha want to build a nest around you and never let anyone hurt you again. Don't, I breathed, even as I leaned into his touch. Don't say things you can't promise to feel tomorrow. Then I'll promise to feel them today, he said. And tomorrow, I'll promise again. And every day after that until you believe me. He leaned down, his forehead touching mine. I know I don't deserve forgiveness. I know I have to earn the right to be River's father, to be anything to you. But please, Sterling, please give me the chance to try. I pulled away before I could do something stupid like kiss him. One step at a time, I said shakily. You can visit River. You can get to know him. But you and me, we're not happening. I won't risk my heart on you again. The disappointment in his eyes was clear, but he nodded. One step at a time, and he agreed. I can work with that. He left shortly after, but not before kissing River's forehead gently while my son slept. I watched from the doorway, my heart breaking and healing in equal measure. True to his word, Damien became a constant presence in our lives over the following weeks. He showed up every evening after work, bringing takeout and toys and endless patience for River's questions. He never pushed me for more than I was willing to give, content to simply exist in our space. River blossomed under the attention. He had never had a father figure before, and watching them together, watching Damien teach him to ride a bike in the park or help with homework at the kitchen table, made something in my chest ache with longing for what could have been. But I kept my walls firmly in place. I couldn't forget that this was temporary, that any day Damien's memories could return and he would remember why he had pushed us away. Then, one night, everything shifted again. I was working a late shift when Margaret found me in the supply room. Sterling, there's been an incident. Damien Frost was brought in by ambulance. Gunshot wound. My world stopped. What? He was targeted leaving his office building, she continued. He's in surgery now, but he was asking for you. Kept saying your name even as they wheeled him in. I abandoned my cart and ran. Protocols and professional distance be damned. By the time I reached the surgical wing, Damien was already in the OR, but Vincent was there, pacing like a caged animal. What happened? I demanded. Rival family, Vincent said grimly. They've been trying to move on our territory for months. Damien's been handling it. But tonight they got bold. Is he going to be okay? Vincent looked at me, really looked at me, for the first time since I had started working at the hospital. You're her, aren't you? The Omega he married, the one who disappeared. I didn't deny it. Does it matter? He matters, Vincent said. And for whatever it's worth, he's been different since he lost those memories. Softer, more human. Whatever you did to him, it made him better. I didn't do anything, I said bitterly. I just existed. We waited in tense silence for 3 hours. Finally, the surgeon emerged, still in his scrubs. He's stable, the doctor announced. The bullet missed all major organs. He'll need time to recover, but he should make a full physical recovery. And his memories? I asked before I could stop myself. The surgeon hesitated. The head trauma from this incident, combined with the previous injury, it's possible it could trigger their return, or it could permanently cement the amnesia. We won't know until he wakes up. Can I see him? The words escaped before I could think better of them. The surgeon nodded. Recovery room 3, but only one visitor at a time. I let Vincent go first. He deserved that. But when he emerged 20 minutes later, he looked straight at me. He's asking for you. I found Damien pale and bandaged but awake, his ice-blue eyes tracking me as I entered. Sterling, he breathed. You came. Of course I came, I said, moving to his bedside despite my better judgment. You were hurt. He caught my hand, his grip weak but insistent. I thought I was going to die, he admitted. and all I could think about was that I wouldn't get to see River grow up, that I wouldn't get the chance to prove to you that I'm different. Damien, I started, but he shook his head. I remember, he said quietly. My heart stopped. What? I remember, he said quietly, and my entire world came crashing down around me. I tried to pull my hand away, but he held on with surprising strength for someone who had just come out of surgery. Sterling, please listen. No, I whispered, tears already streaming down my face. I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear you explain again why we were a mistake, why River was a liability. That's not what I'm going to say, he interrupted, his voice urgent. I remember everything. The wedding, the pregnancy, the fear that consumed me when I realized how vulnerable loving you made me. I remember Vincent coming to tell me that the Castellano family had found out about you, that they were planning to use you against me. I froze, my eyes widening. What? 3 weeks before I pushed you away, Damien continued, his voice rough with pain. Vincent intercepted communications between the Castellanos and a corrupt cop. They knew about you. They had photos of you leaving our apartment. They were planning to kidnap you, to use you and our unborn child as leverage. His grip tightened on my hand. I had 2 choices. I could start a war that would have destroyed half the city and put you directly in the crossfire, or I could make them believe you meant nothing to me, that you were just a temporary convenience I was already planning to discard. You're lying, I said, but my voice shook with uncertainty. I called you a mistake in front of their informant, he said, tears now streaming down his own face. I made sure word got back to them that I had thrown you out. I had Vincent spread rumors that I had never even cared about the Omega, that the pregnancy was an inconvenience I had dealt with. I sank into the chair beside his bed, my legs unable to hold me. You could have told me. You could have explained. And put you at even greater risk? He asked bitterly. You would have wanted to stay. You would have thought love could protect us. But love doesn't stop bullets, Sterling. Love doesn't prevent kidnappings. The only way to keep you safe was to make you leave and make sure everyone believed I was glad you were gone. So you made me hate you, I whispered, the pieces finally clicking into place. I made you hate me, he confirmed, because an Omega who hated me would run far and fast and never look back. An Omega who hated me wouldn't come to my funeral when my enemies eventually succeeded in killing me. An Omega who hated me would raise our child somewhere safe, somewhere my world could never touch him. The tears were falling faster now, 5 years of pain and anger and confusion unraveling into something far more complicated. You broke my heart to save my life. I broke both our hearts, he corrected, his voice cracking, and I've regretted it every single day since. Do you know how many times I had Vincent check on you? How many times I sat outside your apartment building in different cities just to make sure you were safe? You followed us? I asked, shocked. From a distance, he admitted. I never approached, never let you see me. But I needed to know you were okay, that River was healthy. When you got the job here at the hospital, I thought I would lose my mind being so close and not being able to talk to you. Wait, I said, suspicion dawning. Did you arrange for me to get this job? He had the grace to look ashamed. The hospital needed funding for a new trauma wing. I made sure they got it, with the condition that they hire the best trauma nurse in the region. You. I stood up, pacing away from the bed. You manipulated my entire life. Even after pushing me away, you were pulling strings. I was keeping you safe, he insisted. The Castellanos are still out there, Sterling. They're the ones who shot me tonight. They're the ones who have been targeting my businesses, my people. I pushed you away to protect you, and it worked. They don't know about you or River. His voice grew urgent. But if they find out, if they discover that I have a son, they will use him to destroy me. They will use both of you. That's why I couldn't tell you the truth 5 years ago. That's why I can't be with you now, even though losing my memories and falling in love with you all over again has been the sweetest torture I've ever endured. I turned back to face him, my heart breaking all over again. So what now? You remember everything, which means you remember all the reasons we can't be together. Do you want us to disappear again? No, he said fiercely. God, no. I need you to understand that when I pushed you away, it wasn't because I didn't love you. It was because I loved you too much to let them hurt you. But you hurt me instead, I said quietly. You destroyed me, Damien, and knowing the reason doesn't magically heal that wound. I know, he whispered. I know, and I'm sorry. I'm so fucking sorry, Sterling. We sat in silence, the weight of 5 years of secrets hanging between us. Finally, I spoke. What do you want from me now? I want to end this, he said. I want to eliminate the Castellano threat once and for all so that you and River can be safe. So that maybe, if you can ever forgive me, we might have a chance at the family we should have been. And if you can't eliminate the threat, I asked, what then? Then I'll make sure you and River are protected for the rest of your lives, he said simply, even if that means staying away from you both. Even if that means watching from a distance while someone else gets to be River's father. The pain in his voice was real, raw, devastating. This was the Damien I had married, the one who had loved me enough to break us both to keep me safe. But it was also the Damien who had made that choice without me, who had decided my fate without giving me a voice. I need time, I said finally. I need time to process all of this, to figure out what I want. Take all the time you need, he said. I'll wait. I've waited 5 years. I can wait longer. I left the recovery room with my mind spinning. Vincent was still in the waiting area, and he stood when he saw me. Did he tell you? About the Castellanos? Yes, I confirmed. Why didn't you tell me when you saw me in the hospital? Vincent looked uncomfortable. He made me promise not to. Said it would put you in danger if you knew the truth. But I wanted to. Every time I saw you looking at him like he had destroyed your world, I wanted to tell you that he destroyed himself too. I nodded slowly, then asked the question that had been burning in my mind. Is he going to kill them? The Castellanos? Vincent met my eyes steadily. Yes, this war has been building for 5 years. Tonight was the last straw. By the end of the month, the Castellano family will no longer be a threat to anyone. The certainty in his voice should have scared me, but all I felt was exhausted. Tell him, I started, then stopped. Tell him to be careful, for River's sake. Vincent's expression softened slightly. I will. I went home to my son, to the small apartment that had been our sanctuary. River was asleep, the babysitter dozing on the couch. I paid her and sent her home, then stood in River's doorway watching him sleep. He looked so much like Damien. The same black hair falling across his forehead, the same sharp features softening in sleep. Had Damien been right to push us away? Had making me hate him really been the only way to keep us safe? Or had there been another path, one we might have found together if he had trusted me with the truth? I didn't have answers. Only questions, and a heart that didn't know whether to break or heal. The next few weeks were tense and strange. Damien recovered from his gunshot wound but stayed away from our apartment, respecting my need for space. But he called every night to talk to River, and my son's face would light up every time he heard his father's voice on the phone. Vincent kept me updated on the situation with the Castellanos, though I suspected he was sanitizing the details. There were incidents, confrontations, a warehouse fire that made the news, a high-ranking Castellano soldier found dead in his car. The war Damien had been avoiding for 5 years was finally here, and it was brutal. Then, one night, 3 weeks after Damien had regained his memories, Vincent called me directly. It's over, he said simply. The Castellano family has been neutralized. The remaining members have fled the city or been arrested. The threat is gone. And Damien? I asked, my heart in my throat. He's fine, Vincent assured me. Few bruises, but nothing serious. He wanted me to tell you that you're safe now. You and River both. I ended the call and sat in the dark living room, processing the news. The danger was gone. The reason Damien had pushed us away no longer existed, which meant we had to decide what came next. As if summoned by my thoughts, there was a knock at the door. I knew who it was before I opened it. Damien stood in the hallway, looking exhausted but whole. His black hair was disheveled, and there was a fresh bruise along his jaw, but his ice-blue eyes were clear and focused entirely on me. "Can we talk?" he asked quietly. I stepped aside to let him in. He moved past me into the living room, his presence filling the small space in a way that made my heart race. I sat in the chair across from the couch, maintaining distance. "Vincent said the threat is gone," I prompted. "It is," he confirmed. "The Castellanos are finished. Their allies have scattered. You're safe now. River is safe." "Okay," I said carefully. "What does that mean for us?" He leaned forward, his hands clasped between his knees. "It means I don't have to stay away anymore. It means I can be River's father, openly, publicly. It means—" He paused, his eyes searching mine. "It means I can ask you to give me another chance without putting you in danger." I stood up, too agitated to sit still. "You think it's that simple? You think that just because the external threat is gone, we can pick up where we left off?" "No," he said quickly, standing as well. "I know it's not that simple. I know I broke your trust. I know that even with the best intentions, I hurt you in ways that can't be easily fixed." "Then what are you asking for?" I demanded, my voice rising. "What do you want from me, Damien?" He crossed to me in 3 long strides, stopping just short of touching me. "I want everything," he said intensely. "I want to wake up next to you every morning. I want to teach River to ride a bike and help him with his homework. I want to hear about your day and tell you about mine. I want family dinners and arguments about whose turn it is to do the dishes and lazy Sunday mornings in bed." His voice dropped to a whisper. "I want to be your husband again, Sterling. Not in secret. Not in the shadows. I want the world to know that you're mine and I'm yours. I want to bond with you properly, to mark you, to build the life we should have had 5 years ago." "And what about the next time?" I asked, my voice breaking. "What about the next threat? The next enemy who wants to hurt you through us? Will you push us away again to keep us safe?" "Never," he said fiercely. "I learned my lesson, Sterling. Pushing you away nearly destroyed me. It did destroy us. If there's another threat, we face it together. As a family. I won't make that mistake again. I wanted to believe him. God, I wanted to believe him so badly it hurt. But fear held me back. "You broke me," I whispered. "You shattered me into pieces. How do I know you won't do it again?" "You don't," he admitted, and the honesty of it startled me. "You can't know. You have to trust me, and I know I don't deserve that trust, but I'm asking for it anyway. I'm asking you to take a leap of faith with me." He reached up slowly, giving me time to pull away, and cupped my face gently. "I love you, Sterling. I loved you 5 years ago when I was too scared to protect you the right way. I loved you when I lost my memories and fell for you all over again. And I love you now, with every mistake and every regret and every desperate hope that maybe, you can love me back." I closed my eyes, tears streaming down my face. "I never stopped loving you," I admitted. "Even when I hated you, even when I thought you had thrown us away like garbage, some part of me never stopped loving you." His forehead pressed against mine, his breath warm against my lips. "Then let me earn you back," he whispered. "Let me prove that I can be the alpha you and River deserve. However long it takes, whatever I have to do, I'll do it." I pulled back enough to look into his eyes. "I'm scared," I confessed. "I'm terrified that I'll let myself hope again, and you'll break me worse this time." "I'm scared too," he admitted. "I'm terrified that I'll mess this up, that I won't be good enough, that my world will hurt you despite my best efforts to prevent it. But I'm more scared of living the rest of my life without you." We stood there, foreheads touching, breathing the same air, balanced on the edge of a decision that would change everything. Finally, I made my choice. "Okay," I whispered. "Okay, we can try." The relief and joy that flooded his expression was almost painful to witness. He pulled me into his arms, holding me like I was something precious and fragile. "Thank you," he breathed against my hair. "Thank you for giving me another chance." I wrapped my arms around him, letting myself sink into his warmth for the first time in 5 years. "But there are conditions," I said firmly. "Anything," he promised. "No more secrets," I said. "No more making decisions about our safety without consulting me. If there's a threat, we face it together. We figure out solutions together. You don't get to unilaterally decide what's best for me and River." "Agreed," he said immediately. "No more secrets. We're partners in everything. And you have to let River and me into your life," I continued. "All of it. Not just the sanitized version you show the public. If we're going to do this, we're all in. That means I meet your associates. I understand your business. I know what we're dealing with." He pulled back to look at me, surprise evident on his face. "Are you sure?" "It's not pretty, Sterling. My world is dark and dangerous. I'm a trauma nurse," I reminded him. "I've seen dark and dangerous. I can handle it. What I can't handle is being kept in the dark, being protected from the truth while you shoulder everything alone." He nodded slowly. "Okay, full transparency. I'll introduce you to my people, explain the business, all of it. And therapy," I added. "Both of us, together and separately. We have 5 years of pain and mistakes to work through. We need professional help." That surprised him more, but he didn't argue. "If that's what you need, then yes, therapy." I took a deep breath. "And you need to propose to me properly. Not as a business arrangement or a secret we have to hide. If we're doing this, I want the romance. I want the grand gesture. I want to feel chosen, not just necessary." A slow smile spread across his face, the first real smile I had seen from him in years. "I can do that," he said softly. "I can definitely do that." "Then, okay," I said again. "We can try." He kissed me then, soft and careful, like he was afraid I might break. But I kissed him back harder, pouring 5 years of anger and pain and love into it. When we finally pulled apart, we were both breathing hard. "I should go," he said reluctantly. "It's late, and I don't want to confuse River by being here in the morning before we've explained things properly." I nodded, but before he could leave, I caught his hand. "Damien, thank you for telling me the truth, even if it took 5 years. Thank you for listening," he replied, "and for being brave enough to try again." After he left, I went to River's room and sat beside his bed, watching him sleep. Tomorrow, I would tell my son that his father was going to be a real part of our lives. Tomorrow, we would start building the family we should have been all along. And maybe, just maybe, we could heal from the past and build something even stronger. The next morning, I woke River gently and made his favorite breakfast, chocolate chip pancakes with fresh strawberries. He bounced into the kitchen, already chattering about dinosaurs and his friend from school. "Baby," I said, once he was settled with his food, "I need to talk to you about something important." He looked up at me with those serious gray eyes. "Am I in trouble?" "No, sweetheart. Nothing like that." I took a breath. "You know how Damien has been visiting us a lot lately?" "My father," River corrected, and my heart squeezed. "He says I can call him father now if I want to." "That's actually what I wanted to talk about," I said. "How would you feel if Damien spent even more time with us? Like, lived with us?" River's eyes went wide. "Really? Like a real family?" "Like a real family," I confirmed. "But only if you're okay with it. This is your home too, and your feelings matter." He thought about it for exactly 3 seconds before grinning. "That would be so cool. Can he teach me to throw a football? And can we get a dog?" I laughed, the sound feeling rusty but good. "We can talk about the dog, but yes, he can teach you football." River jumped up and hugged me tightly. "I always wanted a father who lived with us," he whispered into my shoulder. "I love you, Daddy." "I love you too, baby," I whispered back, tears stinging my eyes. "So much." That evening, Damien arrived for dinner, and River immediately announced, "Daddy said you're going to live with us." "Father, that's so awesome." Damien shot me a questioning look, and I nodded slightly. "If we're doing this," I mouthed. He broke into a smile that transformed his entire face, making him look younger, lighter. "That's right," he told River, kneeling down to his level. "If it's okay with you, I'm going to be around a lot more. We're going to be a family." River threw his arms around Damien's neck. "It's okay with me. Can you help me build my Lego castle after dinner?" "Absolutely," Damien promised, and I watched the two of them, my heart full, in a way it hadn't been in years. Over the next few months, we slowly built our life together. Damien moved us into a larger, more secure apartment, but he made sure River got to pick his own room and decorate it however he wanted. He introduced me to Vincent and his other trusted associates, and true to his word, he explained the intricacies of his business without sugarcoating the darker aspects. We started therapy, both together and separately. It was hard, painful work. I had to confront the trauma of his abandonment, and he had to face the reality that his protective instincts had nearly destroyed us both. But slowly, week by week, we started to heal. Damien was patient with my boundaries, never pushing for more than I was ready to give. He slept on the couch for the first month, giving me space to adjust to having him in our home. He attended every one of River's school events, taught him to ride a bike, helped with homework. He was everything I had once dreamed he could be. And slowly, carefully, I let my walls come down. Let myself believe that maybe this time would be different. 3 months after we had agreed to try again, Damien took me to the same charity gala where we had first met. I wore a simple but elegant dress, my blonde hair styled in soft waves. He wore a perfectly tailored suit that made him look dangerous and sophisticated in equal measure. But unlike our first meeting, this time we arrived together. This time, when he introduced me to business associates and society elites, he did it with pride. "This is Sterling, my partner," he would say, and every time he said it, my heart would swell a little more. Halfway through the evening, the music shifted to something slow and romantic. Damien offered me his hand. "Dance with me?" I let him lead me onto the dance floor, his hand warm on my waist, our fingers interlaced. We swayed together, and I let myself relax into his embrace. "I love you," he said quietly, just for me to hear. "I love you too," I replied, and meant it completely. He pulled back slightly, his ice blue eyes intense. "Sterling, there's something I need to ask you." My heart started racing. "Here? Now?" "Right here, right now," he confirmed. He released me and lowered himself onto one knee in the middle of the dance floor. The entire ballroom went silent. Every eye turned to us. "5 years ago," Damien said, his voice carrying across the quiet room, "I made the biggest mistake of my life. I let fear convince me to push away the best thing that ever happened to me. I spent 5 years regretting that choice, mourning what I had lost, watching from a distance as you built a beautiful life without me. Tears were already streaming down my face. Then I got a second chance," he continued, "a chance to fall in love with you all over again, to meet my incredible son, to prove that I could be the man you and River deserve. And I don't want to waste another moment." He pulled out a velvet box and opened it, revealing a stunning ring. Platinum band with a single perfect diamond, simple and elegant. "Sterling Hayes, will you marry me?" Not in secret this time, not hidden away, but here, in front of everyone, so the whole world knows that you are my omega, my love, my everything. Will you give me the honor of being your husband? Your alpha, your partner in everything? I looked down at this man, this powerful, dangerous, complicated man who had broken my heart and then spent months carefully piecing it back together, and I knew my answer, without hesitation. "Yes," I said, my voice shaking with emotion. "Yes, I'll marry you." The ballroom erupted in applause as Damien slipped the ring onto my finger and stood, pulling me into his arms and kissing me deeply. When we finally pulled apart, both of us were crying. "I promise," he whispered against my lips, "I will spend every day for the rest of my life making sure you never regret this." "I already don't," I whispered back. We married 2 months later in a small, intimate ceremony surrounded by the people who mattered most. River was our ring-bearer, beaming with pride in his tiny suit. Vincent served as Damien's best man, and Margaret from the hospital stood beside me. When Damien and I exchanged vows, I looked into his eyes and saw my future. Saw the family we would build. Saw the life we would share. I, Sterling, take you, Damien, to be my husband, I said. I promise to trust you with my heart, to face our challenges together, to love you through the good times and the bad. I promise to be your partner, your equal, your home. I, Damien, take you, Sterling, to be my husband, he replied, his voice thick with emotion. I promise to protect you without controlling you, to trust you with my heart and my fears. I promise to be worthy of your love every single day, to be the father River deserves, to build the family we should have had all along. When the officiant pronounced us married, Damien kissed me with a tenderness that made my heart ache in the best way. River cheered, and our small group of friends and family applauded. That night, in the home we now shared, I stood on our balcony, looking out at the city lights. Damien came up behind me, wrapping his arms around my waist and resting his chin on my shoulder. "Happy?" he asked softly. I leaned back into his warmth, happier than I ever thought possible. "River's already asleep," he murmured, exhausted from all the excitement. I smiled. He had the best day. You should have seen how proud he was walking down that aisle. "I saw," Damien said, "and it made me realize something." "What's that?" "That this is what I was so afraid of losing 5 years ago," he said quietly. "This feeling of completeness, of having everything that matters right here in my arms. I was so terrified of my enemies taking it away that I took it away myself. But we found our way back," I reminded him, turning in his arms to face him. "That's what matters. Not the years we lost, but the life we're building now." He kissed my forehead gently. "You're right, and I'm going to make sure the rest of our years are so good they make up for the ones we missed." "That sounds like a challenge," I teased. "Consider it a promise," he replied seriously. "You and River are my priority. My empire, my business, all of it comes second to you two." I cupped his face, running my thumb along his jaw. "I love you, Damien Frost." "I love you, Sterling Frost," he replied, and hearing my new name on his lips sent warmth flooding through my chest. We stood there on the balcony, wrapped in each other's arms, looking out at the city that had witnessed both our destruction and our rebuilding. Somewhere in the apartment behind us, our son slept peacefully, safe and loved. And ahead of us stretched years of possibility, of family, of the life we had fought so hard to claim. 5 years ago, Damien Frost had broken my heart to save my life. Tonight, he had given me his heart to build our future. And this time, I knew we would protect it together. 2 years later, I stood in the doorway of our home, watching as Damien helped River with his science project at the kitchen table. Our son was 7 now, all long limbs and endless questions, still obsessed with dinosaurs, and now also fascinated by chemistry. "How's it coming?" I asked, moving to join them. "Father says we're going to make a volcano," River announced excitedly. "A real one that erupts." "A small one," Damien clarified, shooting me an amused look. "Very controlled. Very safe." I laughed, ruffling River's black hair. "Sounds perfect. Just try not to destroy the kitchen." As I watched my husband and son work together, mixing baking soda and vinegar, their heads bent close in concentration, I felt a wave of gratitude so strong it nearly took my breath away. This was everything I had wanted, everything I had thought I lost forever. Damien looked up and caught me watching, a soft smile playing at his lips. "What?" "Just thinking about how far we've come," I said. He stood, crossed to me, and pulled me into his arms. "Best journey of my life," he murmured, kissing me softly. "Even with all the pain?" I asked. "Especially with the pain," he confirmed, "because it taught me what matters. Taught me to fight for what I love instead of running from it." River made a gagging noise from the table. "Gross. You guys are kissing again." We both laughed, and Damien released me to return to the science project. but his hand found mine, fingers interlacing, a silent reminder that we were in this together. That night, after River was asleep and the kitchen was cleaned, Damien and I lay in bed talking about nothing and everything. These quiet moments had become my favorite part of the day. Just the two of us, the world locked outside, sharing our thoughts and dreams and fears. "I have something to tell you," I said nervously. He turned to face me, immediately alert. "What's wrong?" "Nothing's wrong," I assured him quickly. "It's just, I'm pregnant." The words hung in the air for a moment. Then Damien's face transformed, a joy and wonder and love flooding his expression. "Really? You're sure?" I nodded, pulling out the test I had taken that morning. 3 tests, actually. All positive. He pulled me into his arms, holding me so tightly I could barely breathe. "A baby," he whispered. "We're having a baby." "Are you happy?" I asked, suddenly uncertain. He pulled back to look at me incredulously. "Happy?" "Sterling, I'm ecstatic. Terrified, but ecstatic." I laughed, relief flooding through me. "Me too. This time I get to be there from the beginning," he said, his hand moving to rest on my still flat stomach. "I get to go to appointments and feel the kicks and be there when our child is born." "And change diapers," I added teasingly. "And change diapers," he agreed, grinning. "All of it. Everything I missed with River, I get to experience this time." He kissed me deeply, pouring all his love and excitement into it. When we pulled apart, both of us were smiling. "River's going to be thrilled," I said. "He's been asking for a sibling." "He has?" Damien looked surprised. "All the time," I confirmed. "He wants to teach them about dinosaurs." Damien laughed, the sound rich and warm. "Of course he does." We lay there in the darkness, his hand on my stomach, my head on his chest, listening to his heartbeat. And I thought about how love wasn't always easy, how sometimes it meant breaking apart to heal, how sometimes the path to happiness wound through pain and loss and hard-won forgiveness. But lying there in my Alpha's arms, carrying our child, with our son sleeping peacefully down the hall, I knew that every moment of pain had been worth it, because it had led us here, to this family, to this love, to this life we had built from the ashes of what we lost. The cold Alpha Mafia boss who had once pushed me away had become the warm, loving husband who held me close. The nurse who had once hated him had become the Omega who loved him completely. And together, we had created something beautiful, something worth fighting for, something that would last forever. The end.